Every now and again, we are going to get feedback from someone, and we're also going to give feedback to someone or to people. The question is, what is a feedback? So, a feedback is a written or a verbal statement that is given to a third, that is given to a service provider by a service user or another third party, such as a colleague. So anything that someone gives back to you or feeds back to you, any information that someone sends to you, either in written form or verbally, usually a service provider such as a patient or a client or a colleague or any random person giving you that feedback or giving you that assessment of how of their impression about the quality of your service. That is what a feedback is. Now, taking feedback is a useful skill in life. So, how do we receive feedback? That's a very good skill. One's ability to process feedback, analyze it, and use it. Feedbacks can be solicited or unsolicited, and feedbacks could be formal or informal. I'll explain. Solicited feedbacks are those feedbacks that we ask for. So as a doctor, I have a professional responsibility to get feedback from both my patients and my colleagues. This is a professional, whether I want to do it or not, I have a professional responsibility and it's placed on me to do it. And many other professions, banking, lecturing, being a teacher, working as a data analyst, require that you ask for feedback either from your colleagues or from your clients, the end users of your products. When you ask for those feedbacks, usually for your appraisal or for your professional reflection or your professional advancement or development, those are solicited feedbacks. When a patient or a client gives a feedback on how they feel, or how they perceive the service they've received without you asking for it, then it becomes an unsolicited feedback. Formal, informal fits into what I've just explained as well. The typical example of the unsolicited feedback, as I've said, a patient might be happy with the way a doctor listened to them. A doctor was being thorough in taking a detailed history, examining them, discussing the possible differential diagnosis, carrying them along, made them feel loved, made them feel seen and heard. They might give that kind of feedback. Conversely, a patient might be pissed. A patient might feel they were not listened to. A patient might feel the doctor was, they were being rushed. There was no attention to detail, attention to exactly what they had to say. A typical feedback we get as doctors is patients might not be happy because they were not allowed to or not permitted to talk about all their problems. So a patient might have maybe knee pain, chest discomfort, troubles with their COPD. They want to talk about their declining kidney function, and the doctor has 10 to 15 minutes, and the doctor is trying to explain that they might have to split the appointments, or they might have to spread those problems into different appointments in order to be able to safely and extensively go into each of them. And some people might not really understand that, and that usually comes as a feedback. A lot of the time we get that as a feedback. It could be solicited or it could be unsolicited. Now the question is, how valuable are feedbacks, and how should we deal with these feedbacks, or how should we process feedbacks when they come? Feedbacks were made to be fair and honest, and to reflect how a person or an organization has perceived a service. The importance of feedback is quality improvement. That's in the ideal sense of it. The importance of the feedback system or the feedback mechanism is for people to know what they've done well and then tell them, thumbs up, I like exactly what you're doing, carry on. I'm motivating you to carry on doing good. And then on the other hand, to tell people, yeah, I was expecting this level of meticulousness. I was expecting this level of service delivery, and what I got really fell short of my expectation. I don't think you've done good enough. I don't think you've done well enough. I would like you to improve in these certain areas. That is the goal of feedback. Does it always happen that way? Not always. Let's proceed. Feedbacks can sometimes be intentionally malicious, with the intent to smear the reputation of a colleague or a service provider. It's not very common, but sometimes we find that certain feedbacks might not really reflect the exact quality of care that has been provided, or the exact quality of service delivery that has been provided or that has been delivered. And sometimes you begin to ask yourself, was this actually an honest feedback, or was it actually intentionally aimed to maliciously taint a person's or an organization's reputation? It's important to bear in mind that sometimes, as humans, while giving feedbacks, we might be influenced by our stereotyped beliefs about others on the basis of gender, skin color, which we call race, religion, place of origin. Sometimes, still linked to the malicious feedback. Sometimes we might be influenced by what we think about people. Oh, people from this part of the world are highly uneducated. People from this part of the world are uncultured, are rude. We've grown up with those stereotypes about certain people based on their skin color, gender, race. Skin color, race are the same. Maybe place of origin, different things, and then we are beclouded by that stereotype, and it can affect the quality and the sincerity and honesty in the feedback that we provide. Feedbacks always be accepted. What do I mean? When you receive a feedback from a client or a service user, do you always absorb and accept that feedback? The answer is no. And that leads us to how should you process a feedback? The first thing you should do when you receive a feedback from a client is to ask yourself, does this feedback truly, sincerely, genuinely reflect the quality of service that you have provided? You have to be able to ask this question, and you have to be able to search your soul and actually come up with a sincere answer as to whether all or part of that feedback truly reflects the quality of care or the quality of the product that has been delivered or the quality of the service that has been provided. The most important feedback is an internal feedback. By internal feedback, I mean the feedback you give yourself. For you to actually benefit from internal feedbacks, you have to be honest. You have to truly analyze yourself. So, for instance, if you're a data analyst, if you're a good data analyst, you should know. And that is where self-understanding, self-awareness, and self-knowledge comes in. You need to be aware of how good or how not good you are as a service provider, or as a product designer, as a sales manager, as a medical doctor, as a nurse. You need to know without anyone telling you. You need to know whether you are good or whether you are falling short. You need to know your areas of weakness and your areas of strength. You need to be someone who always wants to get better. So when you know yourself, when a feedback comes, you can say, oh yeah, I know that I have that deficiency in that area. I've already known and I'm already trying to improve on that area. Or if a feedback comes and you might say, oh, that doesn't reflect me in any way, because you know yourself, you know your capabilities, you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses. Some feedbacks might come in and you just tell yourself, this doesn't reflect my capacity or my ability in any way. So feedback should not necessarily always be accepted. You have an opportunity as an individual, as an organization, to process a feedback, and you can always reject it if you think it doesn't sincerely reflect the quality of care you've provided. Something to bear in mind is feedback can come from a place of frustration and anger when we don't get the outcomes we desire. It's very common. You go on Amazon and you shop, and maybe you didn't really read the product description very well, and you place an order, and that order comes and you've tried to return it or something and you just can't get it, changed or returned, you get frustrated, you get angry. So even though you were the one who didn't really read the product description thoroughly and you placed your order, out of that anger and frustration, it's not uncommon for people to go on Amazon or any other sales platform and leave negative feedbacks. And they may not be open enough to actually tell the world that they actually didn't read the product description thoroughly. They may just give a negative feedback on the service they've received, on the product they've received, keeping intentionally hiding away that part that points fingers at them. So sometimes, as medical doctors, patients might not actually be satisfied with the level of care you've provided. Even though you've not done anything wrong, you might actually still get some negative feedbacks because people are frustrated, people are angry, they've probably not been met, they've probably not achieved all their aims, all this talked about all the problems they wanted to talk about in that single consultation. So out of that frustration, sometimes feedbacks can actually come in. That is why you need to know yourself. You need to be able to process things, because if you're someone who doesn't know yourself and you become, to summarize, the best feedback is that feedback that you give yourself, the internal feedback. But provided that you are honest and reflective about your performance. So if you're pompous, if you're someone who lies to yourself, if you're a 2/10 in performance and you have that braggadocio and over-bloated sense of importance and you see yourself as a 9 or 10/10 in terms of performance, then you're lying to yourself. If you're a 4/10 in performance and you tell yourself, you know what, I'm not doing too good, I need to improve in these aspects, and you're putting in, efforts to get things done, to get yourself improved, to improve the quality of care or the quality of products you're manufacturing or the quality of services you're providing, then that's very good. But you have to be able to process your feedback honestly, sincerely, and with integrity for you to be able to give yourself a good internal feedback, which remains the best form of feedback. Cheers. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, like this video so the algorithm will push it out and spread it like wildfire. Thank you. Cheers, guys. Peace. Very permeable. Actually, you become very permeable, and everything that someone says gets absorbed into you. Now, what it means is that you become very prone to being depressed, being anxious. You feel very unworthy. You feel very unappreciated because you tend to absorb everything that every Tom, Dick, and Harry says. Remember, external feedbacks are people's perception or people's opinion about you. They may be true, they may be partly true, they may be partly untrue, and they may be completely untrue. It's left for you to sincerely and honestly process that feedback and ask yourself, what can I take out of this? Is there something to learn from this? Is there something to pick? A point for me to get better, improve the quality of my care? Or is this just a malicious feedback from someone who is angry? Or is it malicious from someone who intentionally wants to taint your reputation, probably wants to get you sacked, probably wants to prevent you from getting a promotion? It happens at the workplace, especially the corporate world where people struggle for promotions, and who becomes the manager, who becomes the deputy manager. There can be some toxic, relationships at certain corporate, workplaces, and people might begin to become very vindictive. Processing feedback is a two-pronged approach, as I've said. The first prong of the fork would be you trying to get the meat or the flesh out of the feedback, as I've said, for the purpose of growth and improvement for yourself or your organization. The second prong is making sure you don't become a receptacle to the opinions of everyone. You have to see feedbacks so you don't lose your mind and lose the true knowledge of who you truly are. Growing up in Opus Dei, when I used to attend Opus Dei, we were taught one thing. Guard your senses. Guard your senses. Guard your eyes. Guard what you see. Guard what you hear. Guard what you say so you don't fall into sin. And that thing is guard your heart. We're taught to guard your heart. Shield your heart so that you don't absorb everything that everyone has to say. Because you have to protect your mind. Bear in mind that everyone who works has a mind. People get depressed, people get anxious a lot of the time because of the opinions of others. So, how do you guard your heart from absorbing toxicity, from absorbing everything without feeling very down, whilst also keeping an open mind to be able to process feedbacks and absorb the important information that will help you grow or help your organization grow? It's very important. To summarize, the best feedback is that feedback that you give yourself, the internal feedback. But provided that you are honest and reflective about your performance. So if you're pompous, if you're someone who lies to yourself, if you're a 2 over 10 in performance and you have that braggadocio and overbloated sense of importance and you see yourself as a 9 or 10 over 10 in terms of performance, then you're lying to yourself. If you're a 4 over 10 in performance and you tell yourself, you know what, I'm not doing too good, I need to improve in these aspects, and you're putting in, efforts to get things done, to get yourself improved, to improve the quality of care or the quality of products you're manufacturing or the quality of services you're providing, then that's very good. But you have to be able to process your feedback honestly, sincerely, and with integrity for you to be able to give yourself a good internal feedback, which remains the best form of feedback.